That's the way it's supposed to be done. And we always forget to do it. So I thought, wow, we might as well do this in a big way. It's a holiday, so it's a wake-up call. That's right. That's right. Thank you all so much for being with us this evening, for sharing this part of your Sunday evening with us. It is a holiday weekend, and we just, we never know who and how and who's going to be doing what, where, when, etc. So thank you all. I'm not going to speak a long time today because we have both Craig and Chris here, and they have some wonderful things to share with us. Two things, however. Tomorrow afternoon, right back here at the Central Park, down the hill by the Labyrinth, we will begin the roll call, the reading at 2:30. At 3 o'clock, wherever we are in that reading, we will stop, and we will then have taps and participate in taps around America. And from that point, if there are more names to be read, we'll finish up. I think it will be a wonderful afternoon. If you all say your prayers tonight, add a good weather prayer if you don't mind. We would love to have better than above average weather, better than above average. If by some chance it is pouring down rain or very wet, we will meet in here and we will gather in our circle. But for the most part, we're going to be outside. Thank you for being part of that. And then on the 11th of June, we will meet here for a second Sunday service. It's sort of the first Sunday of our summer time. So all the information is in here. And on that note, is Franklin? We want to sing Happy Birthday to Franklin Dotz. Franklin is on Zoom with us this evening, and some of you don't know him, but many do. He's one of the original stars, and I think he's in his early 90s. Let's leave it at that, shall we? And some of us talked to Franklin Friday night, so I'm going to ask you if you would join your voices as we sing together, Happy Birthday, Franklin. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Franklin. Happy birthday to you. Franklin was a vital member of STAR and still is our, I think he has the gold star for times being with us for Zooming, so we're thrilled. As we do at each service, we begin our time together by stepping up to the welcome altar, dipping our fingers in the water, sort of washing in preparation to enter this space. So I'm going to ask that we now take advantage of that and that we prepare ourselves by stepping up to the altar and prepping us, our hearts, our souls, and our hands. Will you join me, our voices together, in the call to prayer found in our service sheet? We bid you welcome, who come with weary spirit seeking rest, who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid. We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart, who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous. We bid you welcome, who are seekers to a new faith, who come to probe and explore, who come to learn. We bid you welcome, who enter this place as a homecoming, who have found here room for your spirit, who find in this people a family, whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome. And as we have prepared ourselves to be present in this sacred circle, we will now all step to the altar and light a candle. It is our way of blessing this time together. Our music this evening is thoroughly American. It is American jazz, and all of our musicians. We couldn't rely on Peter because he has a part to play in the service this evening, other than playing the violin, even though we love having him. So David and I thought, what's more American than American jazz? So you'll hear some improv this evening as well. Will you join me in the prayer of blessing? It is a responsive prayer. Creator God, we always ask before we thank, for we are asking creatures. We ask for love, and thank you for the love you have inspired in us. We ask to be closer to you, and thank you for our capacity to pray. We ask for your understanding, and thank you for bringing us the light of your presence. We ask for happiness, and thank you for the joy of life. We ask for strength, and thank you for the courage you have given us to hope. We ask for your presence, and thank you for living in our hearts. We ask, and we have already received. Blessed be your name, O God, our Creator. Amen. Peter, I'm going to ask if you would introduce our guests, Craig and Chris.
Craig Burnette is a person who belongs to a group I call my circular friends. And the circle started some years ago when we were both undergraduates at Wofford, even though he's significantly older than I. And some years later, we reconnected at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where I was stationed with the Army Hospital, and Craig had just returned from a tour in Vietnam. He had just a few months left in the Army before discharge, and he said he had no idea what he would pursue after that. I told him that I had finished a master's degree at the University of South Carolina, and that he should look into that since he was eligible for the GI Bill and already had a college degree. He said, "Yeah, but you're smarter than I am." And I said, "That's correct, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. Give it a try." The next part of the circle, we connected again sometime later when I returned from Vietnam and Korea, and I discovered that he had completed a doctoral degree and was working as a psychologist for the Veterans Administration. And of course, I took full credit for that. And we connected again some years later when we both had retired and were living here and had become active as volunteers in the mental health and veterans areas. Craig is one of those people, though, who never really retires. Of helping veterans with their struggles is a passion for him, and it continues to this day. He's been recognized by the Spartanburg County Foundation as the Citizen of the Year. He has been awarded the very esteemed Order of the Palmetto and many other accolades for his work with veterans and the homeless. He's not one to sit around a table and vote on motions. He gets into the trenches. It wouldn't be unusual to see him under a bridge or in a dark alley working toward helping others toward a better life. Many of us have learned the hard way. If Craig calls and asks you to help, don't waste your breath or time trying to say no or I'm too busy for that. Just ask him when and where you're supposed to show up. He is now chairing an organization that he engineered, Warriors Once Again, which operates a facility just a few blocks from where we are right now, for homeless veterans who are working toward independence. And he'll tell you more about that this evening. It completes the circle of our friendship, and I'm pleased to introduce Craig Burnette.
Now, can you not question his intelligence because he said all that and then I get the microphone? What was smart about that, Peter? Let me tell you. My turn. First of all, thank y'all for having me back. I don't know whether some of you were here a couple of years ago, maybe. Was it before COVID even? It was before COVID. And I came to this wonderful group of caring people to talk about homelessness in Spartanburg as well as homeless veterans. And I'm happy to be back to talk to you about several things, some things which are not pleasant. 2 weeks ago, if you're going out West Main and you go down the dip, across the railroad tracks, down the dip, I'm headed from downtown, and there's a event rentals place on the right, and I think a Dollar General right there. There's a street off to the left, Weber Street maybe, I can't remember, Walker Street. 2 weeks ago, thank you. 2 weeks ago, we held a ceremony there. It's our second one. I say us, there's a lot of us involved in these efforts. And we released balloons as we read each name of a homeless citizen of Spartanburg who had died on the streets. We released over a 4-month period, 29 balloons. You didn't read one name in the paper. You had no idea that 500, 600 meters from here, 2 homeless men within 48 hours died on the railroad tracks right down here. One fentanyl, the other beaten to death. I'm sorry to bring you such somber and sad news, but it's a reality for what some of us see every day, volunteer or not, when we're going around trying to help people out of those trenches that we walk in. Let me share with you something called HEART, Homeless Engagement and Response Team. To this city's credit, about a year ago, the city management decided that, yeah, we needed to address the homeless situation, and there's so many things to address with that situation, as you probably know or read about, whether it's housing, mental health treatment, drug treatment, a combination of both, because, as Peter would know, as those of you in the audience that might be clinicians would know, most of our homeless are what we call dually diagnosed. You know, they both have mental health problems as well as substance use problems. Actually, when I ran a 200-bed rehab program for the VA in Florida, and I was lucky to get a dual diagnosed patient. Why? Because many of them were quad diagnosed. We don't even count the physical ailments that are going on with the people who are homeless. That's not even taken into consideration when we see the people and bring them in off the streets for treatment, or try to bring them in off the streets for treatment. But HEART, Homeless Engagement and Response Team. And what the city decided to do was, we have chronic homeless individuals here in Spartanburg, as you know. You see them. If you go to certain places in Spartanburg at certain times of the day, at certain days, you will see the same individuals there. And I say this with all the love in my heart to them. I don't know if you ever saw the movie or not, but it's the usual suspects. It's the people that we see all the time. And how do we break out of that cycle? First Presbyterian Church on Thursday night has a meal for the homeless and for those in need. Doesn't have to be homeless. Very poor people show up there too as well. And that's where the HEART engagement team starts. We start there on Thursday nights, engaging the people that we will see again later on in encampments and stuff like that, but see if we can help them. And what we do is composed of a city employee by the name of Marilyn Nguyen. She's Vietnamese. What a spark she is. She's amazing. Officer Pilato, Sergeant Pilato with the city police department. Volunteers like me and others who go out with that response team. Beth Rutherford, some of you may know Beth from when she used to run Spin and was over the homeless center, you know, down there. And Beth is a part of the team now. She's actually, she has a title, Homeless Engagement Specialist by the city. Smartest move the city could have ever made in terms of getting her back involved with stuff like that. She knows the streets and knows what's going on. But we go out and we engage. We engage not only there, at First Presbyterian, but any encampment we've heard about, know about, going to go back to, and we hear it from all sources. We hear it from citizens. Most of the time, the citizens, I'm not talking about y'all, call people to complain, and I understand their complaints, and they call the city, and the city puts it over to us. Hey, check out a certain encampment, certain places, and we do. As Peter talked about, under the bridges, out in the woods, places that I guarantee you, and you're not supposed to know this, but each and every one of you, if you drive anywhere in Spartanburg city limits right now, and I can take you a couple places in the county, you will drive by a homeless encampment that's maybe 100 meters away from you. And it'll be one that may only have one person in it, or it may have as many as 6 or 7 or 8, varying degrees. That engagement team, people say, well, what do y'all do? Can't you get them off the streets? Well, yeah, that's our ultimate goal, but you just don't, and I hope I'm not preaching to the crowd too much, you might know this, but you just don't go to a person who is mentally ill, suffering from substance use, et cetera, and come on with me, and they go. Oh yeah, I'll jump right in your truck, Craig. I'm right there with you. Even if I offer them a pack of cigarettes, don't judge me. Even if I offer whatever, they're not gonna go with me. Not that time, but maybe the 5th time they will. Maybe the 10th time they will. It takes repetitive kinds of things to do to break that cycle sometimes. And we're going to get to warriors once again in a minute. And sometimes, even when we bring them in off the streets and get them into housing run by a magnificent man, I'll introduce you here in a minute, that gets them the clean conditions, gets them treatment, gets them everything we need to try to break out that cycle, and they will thrive, and they're doing good, and we're going, oh man, this is it. And 4 months later, they pop a positive. Urine screen, drug screen, something like that. And we're not back to exactly ground zero, but we're getting close when that happens. So it's a repetitive kind of thing. And I used to tell people when I worked for a living as a clinician, and I oversaw other psychologists, even psychiatrists sometimes, MSWs, et cetera, especially the budding new ones coming in who are going to save the world. And I said, if you're here for reinforcement and continued success, you came to the wrong place based on how you measure success. It's the idea of how long, if a person we bring in, and Chris has had him over there, had the experience, I'll introduce you to Chris here in a minute. Chris has had him in the house for close to a year, I guess, in some cases like that. And if I said to y'all, we've got a homeless veteran we brought in, and after a year, he's clean and sober, and he's going out, and he's going to get permanent housing, and he's doing great, and the next day, he doesn't show back up to the house. And we find out 3 weeks later, he's off drunk somewhere. Well, do we have a success or not? You know, you make that judgment. I know what I'm going to do. I know in terms of my mind and how I'm going to judge success or not. I no longer, and I actually have a research background too, but I've changed my way of thinking about success based on research. I measure success based on each individual and where they are at the time I find them again. If I find the veteran 5 years from now, clean and sober, that's success. So, hey, I'm open to success, which means maybe I don't recognize failure. It just means I need to make another attempt at some point, because this is the way that person is living their life. And I will take a look at what I've done or not done to see if I contributed to that change in their behavior or whatever. Back in the day when I worked for a living, we would have on my watch, I'm getting a chill as I say this, on my watch we would have people who would suicide. In the VA, you do what's called an M&M, mortality and morbidity study. The clinicians open up the record, we look through that record, we look at the notes, we look at the diagnosis, we look at the progress, we look at all those things to see if there's something we missed. Was there a red flag that we, not on purpose by any stretch of the imagination, but could we have done it better? That's a tough standard when you're talking about somebody you've worked with for months or even years. And this is back in the day. See, when I first started out, as Peter talked about, when I first started out in the VA, I started out running, this is in 1980, way back before some of y'all were born. Back in 1980, we had what was called, she means you. She looked at you and laughed. She means you, sir. See, I'm a psychologist. I look at body language. I'm checking to see if anybody's fallen asleep yet. So I know, if they do, I'm going to hit the frickin' gong over there. That scared the life out of me. It's a wonder y'all didn't see me laying in the floor going, incoming. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. Way to go. I'm turned talking to Peter. I go, oh my God. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. Well, in 1980, as a result of legislation passed during the Carter administration, and the secretary of the VA, wasn't a secretary position, wasn't a cabinet position back then, it was the administrator of the VA, man by the name of, my hearing aid just flashed, it's going out. So I'm gonna stand like this when y'all talk to me, because this side of me is gone to hell. This side, I can't, it just went beep beep, but that's the last thing I heard on that side. Anyway, okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, Max Cleland. Max is a good friend of mine. Max was a Vietnam lieutenant like myself. I was a lieutenant in Vietnam. I was an infantry platoon leader with the 82nd Airborne and with the 4th Infantry Division. Hoorah. And in that position, you have a lot of responsibility, especially in combat. But Max got blown up in Vietnam and lost both legs and an arm. Triple amputee. Later became a senator from the state of Georgia. Wrote a book called Broken in All the Wrong Places. Fantastic man. Max just passed away last year. As a matter of fact, Max knew that in 1970s that the VA wasn't doing all that great a job of treating veterans, period, but especially Vietnam veterans. We were coming in for mental health concerns and being diagnosed incorrectly. Now, some of them were correct, but some of them weren't. Schizophrenia, for instance, on some people. If you're having a flashback, or if incoming's coming and you think there's more gunfire going on, et cetera, some back in the day, psychiatrists would diagnose you with schizophrenia, you hear voices, you're having hallucinations, et cetera, and it was actually post-traumatic stress disorder that was going on. In 1979, the DSM-3 was the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is what we use to diagnose people with when you're in the mental health community, came out with a diagnosis in 1979 of post-traumatic stress disorder. Max Cleland pushed through Congress, along with Carter, money to open up 90, what were called then, Vietnam-era veterans outreach centers across the nation. We were storefront centers, and we were going to bring in Vietnam veterans for counseling, not behind the walls, the brick walls of the massive VA hospitals, but on the street where they were. And guess what? They funded us to take care of all these Vietnam veterans that were having all these problems, and they funded us for 1 year. Now, go get them, guys. There's a whole other history about how it got continued on, and I won't get to that, or I'd be up here talking too long. We were able to continue the program. I'll just put it that way. I will say this. Nah, that's too political. But guess which side of the aisle wanted us to continue, and guess which side of the aisle didn't want us to continue? I mean, what can I say? Well, I will say this. When Reagan took over, David Stockman came in as Officer of Management and Budget. Everybody thinks Congress has the purse strings. They do to some degree, but OMB's got the real purse strings. They're the ones that know where the money goes and how it's going to go. Those of you that are nodding your heads, you know what I'm talking about. David Stockman decided that the Vet Center program, which cost at that time $3 million a year, needed to be sliced. That was the cost of one F-4 fighter plane in Vietnam back then, okay? David, good man, I'm sure. If he came in, I'd shake his hand. David got deferred from Vietnam 4 times. He went to school first to college, actually 5 times, and he went to Yale Divinity School. When he found out that his lottery number had come up at 270-something, he dropped out of Yale Divinity School because he knew he wouldn't have to serve. And that's what hacked us off. I don't have any problem if you don't want to serve. I don't have any problem. That's your right. You want to go to Canada? That's your right. But don't BS me about it. Tell me up front, Craig, and I've had plenty of friends of mine. Craig, I didn't want to serve. I did this. Okay, you're still my friend. You're honest with me. You're honest with me. And nobody that I knew had bone spurs, by the way. I never heard of it until here a while back. No political comments here by this time, okay? Anyway, I'm going on too long. I know. I need to let Sue go. I'm going on too long. Right. But what happened was, when we did that, in 1985, those of us that were running vet centers across the nation, and I got my doctorates from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and I opened up the first vet center in Knoxville. In 1985, we decided, us team leaders, that we were seeing so many homeless veterans, Vietnam veterans, we couldn't figure it out. So we took a survey, and 1/3 of all the veterans that we were seeing in Vietnam were homeless. Now, the reason I'm going to that, and going back to what I was talking about earlier, was for those veterans to come in to talk with us. I had one living in a cave on the Tennessee River. It took me 5 years a visit to him to get in my truck again. And the only reason he got in my truck because his feet were killing him. Wasn't because, well, he liked me, but that was it. It takes repetitive measures to do that. Now think about this. Think about in 1985 and 1992, Jim McGuire from UCLA and I did a study, the first study ever done on the number of homeless veterans in the U.S. At that time, there were 500,000 on any single night. When we did that study, a lot of things happened as a result of that study. But the thing that did happen that was the most important was we started getting monies from Congress to put into transitional housing and to permanent housing. And as a result, those numbers have fallen off. That, and again, I go back to the morbid part, that and death rates. Vietnam era veterans, people like me right now, are dying at the rate of 500 a day. Most of our homeless veterans now are post 9/11. Folks like Chris standing here. People that have gone in before 11, post 9/11, September 11 and on. And those are the ones that we're seeing now. Most of our veterans that we're seeing now were within that era, most of our homeless veterans. Here in Spartanburg, the numbers since I retired and moved back here some 14 years ago now, close to that long, have somehow dwindled somewhat. But that doesn't mean that we've done it, and we haven't. So finally, I wanted to introduce Chris because he can tell the story much better than me. Although Peter, who's on the board of WOA, and myself, I'm the chair of the board, we know of what's going on, but this man, Chris, is there 24/7. He's with our homeless veterans day in, day out. He sees them every day. He provides all kinds of individual services to them, all kinds of things that are going on the way it should be done. And so I wanted him to come and give you a little bit of history of how it began, where we are now, and why we're here now. And if you would like, we would love for y'all to come and tour our place, just to see what we have put together. Let me ask you one thing, or to do one thing. In your mind's eye, and you may have to close your eyes, think about what it looks like, what a shelter for homeless people looks like inside. Now keep that image in mind, what you think it looks like. And just keep that in your mind. Thank you. Because in a minute, I want you to hear what ours looks like, a la Chris and the wonderful work done by volunteers in this community. My name is Craig Burnette. If you ever want to talk to me about anything else, about what's going on with the veteran community, homeless or not, homeless in Spartanburg, etc., somebody here knows how to get in touch with me. Don't call Peter. That's all I ask. Don't call Peter, okay? And then we can go from there. Again, thank y'all for letting me. I do have one more thing after Chris finishes I want to share with you that I think you'll appreciate. And then that's it. Chris came to us in fortuitous and serendipitous ways. But Chris spent 12 years in the Marines, ooh, ah. And then, how many years as a federal marshal? 21 and a half years as a federal marshal. This man has done everything from busting up drug rings and human trafficking to providing security for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And who was the other Supreme Court judge?
Anthony Scalia.
Oh, I'm sorry, who?
Anthony Scalia.
Anthony Scalia, the opposite polar ends, but he provided security for them, amongst other things. He is my hero, and he does a marvelous job. Chris Foll. He's from Buffalo or Rochester, so take it easy on him, okay? Because Sue and I are from Fangerville. Did I get that right?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm the new guy from the standpoint that in a week, I will be in Spartanburg only 3 years. And I say that because it's astonishing what we've created in that 3 years. And the first 6 months of those 3 years, I wasn't even on Craig's radar. Spartanburg was never on my radar. And at the time I met Craig, I was getting ready to mosey on out of here. Nothing bad about it. It was just never on my radar. I came here through an odd set of circumstances, and those had finished up. But when I retired from the United States Marshals, I retired early because, well, not because, but I was just kind of tired of it, 21 and a half years. In the Marine Corps, I was in law enforcement. And, there I got over 30 years of, chasing bad guys and doing all the law enforcement things. And I'm like, I'm just kind of done with it, So as those thoughts were starting to creep into my mind, I had a near-death experience in the line of duty. And I had to take a couple of days off after that because they basically made me. But I started thinking, this is a young man's game. I was approaching 50, and although I still, felt pretty good, I realized I kind of had lost a half a step. So anyway, long story short, I retired early, and I didn't know necessarily what I was going to do. But one of the things I recognized when I was in the law enforcement system, especially federally, federal probation and any of the states' probation departments or anything like that, and parole departments, I would watch the recidivism of the people that I arrested early in my career. They would go, serve their time, whatever, they'd come back into the community, they'd come back into the system. And I'm like, that's not good, right? So I came to see, for that exposure to it, that the probation and parole systems would say, we're here to help you, and we want you to do good, but in my personal opinion, we can debate this another time if you like, if you differ, they would put roadblocks in front of the people to keep them from succeeding. And that kind of made me angry. So I had the opportunity to retire early and take over an operation in New York that took guys out of prison into homes who didn't have homes to go to. And that was a pretty big operation, part of a 2-city operation. And I took over the director of that the day after my retirement and did it for a year. And I had 5 facilities, 47 beds, and almost all of them were full. After a year, I had to leave there because I knew I could never be successful in that model based on the way it was being run above my head. I mean, I was kept in the red, so the other half of the organization that was in the black could do whatever they wanted with their nonprofit money. You can only do so many things with nonprofit money when you have profit, but if you have losses to write those profits off against, you can do whatever you want. So anyway, long story short, ended up down here and met Craig and Charlie Hall, president of Upstate Warriors. They found out I tried to do a little homeless veteran thing over here in Spartanburg that kind of went by the wayside. I tried to resurrect that. COVID messed a lot of things up, but they found out about me and, said, hey, we're going to look at a house that, someone wants to use for homeless veterans. Can you go look at it with us and see if it's okay? And, yeah, okay. So They invited me to a meeting, and the head of the VA in South Carolina was speaking at the meeting, and he, the first time in the room with all these people. I mean, I had never met almost any of them. And the guy speaking, the retired general, he mentioned homeless housing, and every head in that room snapped and looked at me. I was like, something's up. So we went to look at the house about a week later, and it's the one we occupy now. And the owner of the house at the time, he's like, if you were going to do this, what would you do? He didn't know me, I didn't know him, and all these people, Craig, people who are on my board, Peter wasn't there, but Peter's on my board, who had the vision of what I'm doing for years before I ever showed up here, including the owner of the house. I would do, and now having run a couple places and seeing how a bad circus runs and knowing how I would run a good circus, I'm like, I would do this, 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 and this. And this is why I would do this. I don't just say I'm going to do something. This is why. Everything I do in that house, from the way I flip a light switch, has thought behind it and purpose behind it. I'm very OCD about things. But anyway, so I explained to him what I was going to do, and his eyes just got big. And when I was done, he hands me the keys. I'd never met this man. And I'm standing in front of his house, and he's like, do it. And then Craig and Charlie lean in, can you help us? I was like, yeah, I guess I'll help you. But anyway, so we have that picture you have of a homeless shelter. Miracle Hill is a beautiful facility. If you've ever been inside of it, it's gorgeous. But it's kind of an anomaly. We are a beautiful facility. I have been in homeless shelters that have taken over $300,000 a year, and they look bad. They're bad. Someone's on the take. Someone's not reinvesting that money into the program the way they should be. So I had an apartment downtown at the time, and I needed 4 months to get the house ready, which we did. And right before we get ready to open the house, I'm in there every day working. From that time, I said, you'll never have to come back here and check on your property. I'll take care of it. I asked the owner, hey, can I live in here? Because if I walk out the door at 5 o'clock, Trouble is going to walk back in the back door at 6 o'clock. He's like, yeah, you can live there. So there's one apartment on the first floor of the house that is mine, complete, living room, bedroom, bathroom, my own kitchen. So I started doing that, and like I said, I'm OCD. I'm a fastidious creature, and I like atmosphere. So I curate. I'll buy a $150 painting because it talks to me in a way, and I'll spend over $1,000 framing it just to get it right. And I'm that way, but I'm like, you know what? But I'm like, I can't just do this for me. I got to do it for the house too. So you walk into our house, and everything is thought out. Everything. It looks nice. There's no holes in the walls. There's no, cockroaches on the floor. Yesterday's lunch isn't sitting on the dining room table or anything like that. But just to, and I'd, like Craig said, come and tour it. We'd love to show it. We'd love to show it off. Thus far, we are government fund free. And we've applied for a couple government grants this year, but if we don't get them, I will not shed a tear, because after 30 some years in government, I want to kind of cover my phone so the government doesn't hear me. Government ruins most of everything it touches. So we are totally community funded to this point. We opened our doors a little over 2 years ago. We've served 15 veterans so far. Of those 15 veterans, 12 have been what we would consider successful. And I have had to change my metrics on success, going back to what Craig said, and I'll tell you a quick story and then I'll sit down. I'm so sorry, Sue. One guy that came to us, I won't say his name, when he was in Bosnia, he got separated from his unit, him and another guy, and they were lost, and they were behind enemy lines. They crossed over into what they thought was friendly territory, and they were hungry. They had been out for a couple days, and they could smell something cooking, and they're like, wow, man, we're gonna eat soon. We're gonna eat soon. And they crested a hill, and there was a convoy that had taken airstrikes and decimated the convoy, which was mostly women and children. And he associates that smell with, so anyway, not to linger on that, he serves and he gets out and he moves down to Columbia and he meets a nice gal and marries her, and they are married for 21 years. And he was in his early 50s. She was an ultra marathoner. He had his jobs and, she had a career, ultra marathoner. And he sat in her room and watched her pass away 4 months after a brain cancer diagnosis, right in front of his eyes. And within a week, he used cocaine for the first time in his life at 52 years old. So he's on the streets. He was an early resident who came to us, and we took him in. The very first day I took him in, he went out and used cocaine. And I wanted to find him and get him back in the house and kill the people who gave him the cocaine. Because I know how to do that. But so long story short, while he was with us, he would go long periods of time without relapsing on cocaine. But he told me a few times, he said, life is a white knuckle ride between cocaine uses. And he would go months without using it. And I'm like, that's kind of a hard statement to hear. So, but I'm there to address the white knuckle ride. So what he said to me 1,000 times, and I got tired of hearing it, was I've always wanted to learn how to play the violin. I've always wanted to learn how to play the violin. And I knew a gal in Spartanburg here who I knew from up north through some other friends who happened to be here, and she used to play with the Boston Philharmonic. And I called her up and I said, Anna, you ever consider giving lessons? Peter knows her now, because, and Peter can tell you she's a good player. And she's like, as a matter of fact, I have. So at no expense to this resident, she came in once a week and taught him violin, like not fiddling. You want to be a fiddler or a violinist, right? And she taught him, and she wouldn't let him drop his elbow, lift his finger, or whatever. She was teaching him methodically, and he got better and better and better and better. And no cost to him. I even bought him the violin that he used for that, which he still has to this day, because he relapsed for a 4th time. And at that point, it was just too much. You got to go. This is 4 times now. You're beyond where we can help you here, but we don't just turn a guy out like that. So we sent him to a place just across the border in North Carolina, where he continued to get help. And I spoke to him about 2 weeks ago. He's been clean for a while. He has a job and he's in his own house. And he says, I could have never got there if it wasn't for you. And it goes back to Craig's point, because when I started and we started getting traction and being successful, if a guy would do something like that, I'd be all defeated. What do you mean you drank? But you have to change your metric of success to understand that you might not take them across the finish line, but you can get them to the next water station.
Let me give you all a heart close with that story, if you don't mind. The gentleman who learned the violin, one of our residents.
Oh, go ahead, Craig.
Oh, I'm sorry. The gentleman who, he bought him the violin with his own money, not board money. He bought it. Let me re-emphasize that. Anyway, now, he learned to play the violin, right? One of our residents who we literally he was taken off the street, taken to the hospital in an emergency situation. When he got out of the hospital, he came in to live with us. We're not a medical care facility, but we try our best. And Chris was right there with him. And this gentleman did pretty well, but he passed away in our residence. Found him one morning, I guess it was, and he had passed away in the night. When he passed away, we were finally able to get in touch, well, not finally, but get in touch with relatives. Anyway, let me get to the violin. So we had a service for him. He left to go fishing up at Lake Bowen. And so we had a service for him up there, put together by Chris and others within the Upstate Warrior Solution. And we all wrote on rocks messages to him, threw the rocks out into the water where he liked to fish. And the man who learned the violin at our home played taps. If you've never heard taps on a violin, try to do that sometime. It was, I'm about to cry now, it was just, but these are the kinds of scenarios that I want y'all to know can happen if we just give it some try sometimes and just try to do the best we can. We'll never, again, I appreciate Chris's talk about metrics, how you measure those kinds of things. The gentleman who died in our home, was that a success? Was the fact that the man learned to play the violin but then relapsed, is that then a failure? I mean, it's the whole idea of this combination of events and happenings in people's lives. And we would want you to, and I will share this, because they are publicly known that they did this, maybe they are, maybe not, but Paul and Sarah Lerner, Lehner, on Lee Fibers out there off the interstate, they're the ones that gave us the home. By the way, they have given it to us. We own it as a 501c3. It's ours. So, compliments to the Lanners, compliments to them. They literally, Paul would come by and check, it was abandoned. They were going to tear it down and build condos. I mean, Chris has got the drawings where they were going to do that. And Paul Lerner came and would look, there's an alcove in the back and a front porch that provides pretty doggone good shelter if you're homeless. And he would find this one particular time when this homeless man was there, and everything was lined up perfectly, in line, folded exactly, shoes in line, and the guy said, or Paul said, this guy must be a veteran or military, the way it's lined up like that. And Paul called, y'all may know these names, Mariana Harbish-Ordinger, Darwin Simpson, other people throughout the Charlie, me, and others, and that's how we became to Chris meeting him and him dropping the keys and said, we'll make this place for homeless veterans. Compliments to them. So that's how Warriors once again came. Thank you. We're open anytime.
Wide open, wide open. Thank you all. You can tell by their passion that this is something that Spartanburg should be very, very proud of. At this point, we will spend time dropping our pebbles in the vases. These are our joys, our concerns. One of the joys and concern combined are the passion of these two gentlemen. So as we drop our pebbles in the vases, be thinking about what they have done and where we are in Spartanburg. Joining our voices in singing All Shall Be Well. All shall be well. All shall be well. All manner of things shall be well. All shall be well. A portion of our offering this evening has been designated for warriors once again. And we wrote in the service sheet it was to honor Craig, but we're going to honor Chris as well. So it's an honor to the two C's who are with us this evening. How's that? There will be time to talk with both of them during the reception afterwards, during our refreshments. But in the meantime, if I could ask Donna and Sandy to sort of pass around the offering stars. And again, a portion of the donations has been designated for Warriors once again, the transitional home. Again, joining our voices and singing Ubi Caritas. Ubi Caritas et amor. Ubi Caritas Deus ibi est. Live in charity and steadfast love. Live in charity, God will dwell with you. If everyone would please stand as they are able, as we honor the directions together.
Creator, it is us. We invoke you, Walkentonka, from the four sacred directions of our dear Mother, the Earth, to be present as we venture into the wonderful mystery of love. We are told that love is the greatest of all gifts given to us by the Holy One. We are reminded that we are able to love because we were first loved by this great mystery. Every aspect of the universe is held together with love. Love is the goodness of creation. Remember, love is the bridge between you and everything. We burn sage to allow the smoke to love our hurts and to heal them. Our task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within ourselves that we have built against it. Hear the beats of the buffalo drum, and hear the loving heartbeat of the Holy One. As the flute releases her notes, know you are loved, even if you do not feel it. Love is not an emotion, it's your very existence. Facing to the east,
the grandmothers and the grandfathers of the East welcome our brother the sun and his life-giving warmth. This warmth affirms the great love the Holy One has for us. Altogether, love is the attraction of all things towards all things. Great love and great suffering are offered to all. These are our spiritual teachers.
or turn to the right, facing to the south. The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the South tell us the Holy One adores us and loves us and wants to actively spend quality time with us and is always the first in line to hang out with us. Altogether, love is the attraction of all things towards all things. Great love and great suffering are offered to all. These are our spiritual teachers. A quarter turn to the right, facing to the west.
The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the West tell us the Holy One is an active presence in our lives. Spending time with us is a gift of the goodness of creation. Altogether, love is the attraction of all things towards all things. Great love and great suffering are offered to all. These are our spiritual teachers.
Quarter turn to the right, facing to the north. The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the North tell us the Holy One gives us the sunrise and the sunset as gifts to our hearts. Altogether, love is the attraction of all things towards all things. Great love and great suffering are offered to all. These are our spiritual teachers. Facing to the center.
The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the center space tell us the Holy One touches us with the wind and the rain as a way to experience love. Look around this circle and see the goodness of creation in every face. Altogether, love is the attraction of all things towards all things. Great love and great suffering are offered by all. These are our spiritual teachers. Namaste.
I would invite everyone to please stand as we sing our sending out song, Go Now in Peace. And remind you that immediately following, Sandra has a wonderful refreshment table for us. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Until tomorrow evening, right out here and back, God's peace, grace, and blessings be with each one of you. Thanks to Craig, thanks to Chris, thanks to Peter for arranging all of this. Let's enjoy some time together. Amen.